Hey everybody, so today we're going to be coloring our May 2013 Copic card kit, and this month's kit features our Whimsy Stamps Flowers for You image by Chrissy Armstrong, and isn't he adorable? Thought it'd be really cute with Mother's Day coming up. You can see if this kit is still available by heading over to the store at www.HeathersHobbieHaven.com, and I'll put a link down in the description. And up in the little search bar of the store, you'll just put Flowers for You in there, and it'll pop up if it's still available if you're watching this later on. So I've already stamped my image on Neenah 80-pound Solar White cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. So let's color. So today we're going to start by coloring his pants because I want to texturize those with a little bit of piece of denim. So for my pants I'm going to use E43, E42, and E41. And I always do, if I'm going to add texture, I always do that first so that I don't have to worry about messing up any of my other coloring. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my darkest, which is E43. And let's just go ahead and do this leg over here first. So I'm going to start by laying down where I want to have some shadows. So I'm going to go right underneath of his shirt sleeve, along this little seam of his pants there, his little pocket. And let's do the outside of his jeans. And you could make these blue too if you wanted. I just chose this time to have brown pants. Kind of give that a little bit in there. Let's do both of those lines. And like that. And then he's also got some little bumps here on his pants. So I'm going to go ahead and take my little pen and just add just a little bit more to each of those little bumps that bump out inside of his jeans. So it looks like there's a little bit of a crease right there. Like that. And then I'm going to go with E42. And I'm going to put my pin down on top of the 43. And I'm going to flick out into the middle. And I'm also going to go over each of those cute little lines I laid down. Let's brush down this way. Same thing with this side. We're just brushing that away. And I'm not too worried because I'm going to do it a second time, so I wasn't too concerned if it wasn't blended the way I wanted the first time. Then I'm going to grab E41 and I'm going to add a little bit more. So I've put my pin down on top of my 42 and I'm going to flick out here into the middle, but I'm going to leave a little streak of white in the middle part. And then I'm going to go back with my 43 and I'm going to start over. I'm just going to go down the side of his pants. Make sure to bump out in those little spaces that I chose to have a little bump out. Right over that. Add some more of those little creases right there. And along the bottom of his pants. And then I'll again go over it with my E42. So I've laid down on top of my 43, and I'm just flicking away towards the middle. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for this side. And go all the way down. And I want to make sure to go over the top of these dark spaces right there. And then I'll pick up my 41 and we're going to fill it all the way in. And it's still looking a little blotchy, so I'm going to go ahead and go over it a second time with my 41. And work my way around here a third time. Okay, I like that much better. So I'm going to leave that, and we're going to go to the other side. So we'll start with 43 again, And again, I'm just going to go all the way around my pants, and where there's a little bump out in his, it looks like it kind of curves, his pants kind of go in towards his pants. I'm going to put a little bitty line there, so it looks like there's a little crease over the top of this, underneath of his shirt. Get those little wrinkles right there, and right here. And then we'll grab 42, and again put your pen down on top of your 43 and flick out towards the middle. And because I'm going to go over it again, I'm not concerned that it's not blending that line as like I would like. This is just my first coat, so I'm not worried about it. And then we're going to grab 41 and lay down on top of your 42 like you did before. And go right over that, and I've left a little bit of white there in the middle. Then I'm going to go back and grab my 43 again, and I'm just going to go right back over where I put it the very first time. Add those shadows back in. Okay, and then we're going to go with 42 again. Lay down on top of your 43 and pull towards the middle, and up here pull towards the middle, and come clear around the side and over the top of that. And then we're going to grab 41 and we're going to fill that in. Okay, and just like last time, it's still looking a little like it needs another coat, so I'm going to go ahead and go over it again. I'm going to start up here at the top and work my way down to the bottom, and then go from the bottom to the top. I think I'll do a little bit more on this side, just a tad bit more. There's another coat of that over the top. Okay, I like how that looks. And now for his little seam in his pants right here in the middle, I took my 43 and I just filled that in. Same with this little pocket accent he's got there. And then for his jeans down here on the bottom, one of his cuffs, I went ahead and just used my 43 to fill that in. And I did a first coat, and then I came back with a second coat just to darken it up a little bit more. I wanted it to be a little bit darker. Okay, that looks pretty good, so I'm going to leave it like that. So to add texture to my pants, I have a little piece of denim here, and it's just a pair of old jeans. My husband got a hole in them, and I just cut a little square out. I'd say it's about 3 inches by 4 inches, and I've had this forever. So I've also got, zoom out just a little bit, I've got my bottle of Copic colorless blender here, and if you have a little refill bottle, that would work too. And so what you're going to do is you're just going to take your colorless blender, and I put a little dab up here in the corner. So I'd say my circle's about an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch. And then you just take it while it's still wet, and you press it down on the pants. And this is why you do it first, so that because it's getting outside of the lines, it doesn't matter because you didn't color anything else, so you're not going to be texturizing anything else. And also, I noticed the first time I colored this, I actually colored the pants blue, and it was really dark, so the pant legs were really saturated. So when I did the pressing of and see the great texture on there, when I did my texturizing, it actually bled the blue outside the lines. So if you're going to texturize, make sure to use a little bit lighter hand when you're putting the color on. But I love that great little texture it's added to our little jeans there. And you could use all different kinds of things. If you have a terry cloth washcloth, bubble wrap, a piece of saran wrap all crinkled up, lots of different things add different textures to your products or to your projects. So try some out and see how it looks. So let's go and color the rest of our boy. Okay, so let's go color his skin, and I'm going to use E21, E00, E000, R20, and R30 for the cheeks. And this is just my favorite skin tone. There are lots of different choices over on the store blog, and there's a link to the store blog down in the description. And if you'll just look on the sidebar under labels, you can see, go down, I think it's Copic skin tones, and if you just click on that, it'll pop up a whole bunch of different choices for you to try out. So I'm going to start down here at his feet. And I'm going to start with E21 first, because I like to color dark to light. And I'm going to just and his feet aren't very big, so I'm just going to put a little bit there along the edge, and maybe do a dab on his toes, and try to do a little bit on the creases of his little toes. And go right along his cuff of his pants. And then I'm going to grab E00, and I'm going to touch down on my 21, and I'm going to flick towards the white. And that's softening my line by touching down on it. And I filled them all the way in because they're so small. And we'll go up here and we'll do his hands. Same thing, we're going to start with E21. And I'm going to lay down some shadow. So I'm going to go right along the bottom of his hand. And I'm going to give a little bit more extra there where his thumb has a crease. And then go along his pants. And I'm going to do a little bit by his shirt. It looks like his shirt is touching his hand. And then up here, let's do underneath. And then I'm going to get these little creases in his fingers. And I'm going to go up here underneath where the flower's at. And then I'm going to grab my E00. And again, because it's so small, I'm going to fill it all the way in. But I'm touching down on my 21, and I'm pulling towards my white. And same thing for this side. Touch down on your 21. Pull towards the white space. And let's go up here and do his neck. So again, we're going to start with E21. And I want the sun to be coming from over here because it's kind of, his face is tilted up a little bit more on that side. So I'm going to put my shadow underneath of his chin and down this side of his shirt there. And then I'm going to grab my E00 and fill that space in. So touch down on your 21. And lightly feather it, because it's kind of a small space, feather it over to your white. Alright, and then let's go up here and do his face. So again, we're going to grab 21, and I'm going to do inside of his little ear right here. And then let's just outline his face. I'm going to go up here kind of into his bangs, and come around to his chin. And back up. And we'll get the inside of this ear a little bit. And let's do just a little dab there in between his little hair. His hair up here, he's got a little bit showing. And then for his nose, I'm going to do a little bit just underneath. He doesn't per se have a nose in there, so I'm going to give him one. So I'm just going to take with my pen and very lightly make a little line like that. Give him a little bit more of some shadow in there. Okay, and then I'm going to grab E00, and I'm going to go over here, and we're going to start by filling in his ear. And I'm going to leave the top part up here white so that I can come back and add my E000. And then we're going to come up here, and we're going to go touch down on your 21, and I'm going to pull in towards the middle of my face. And I'm actually going to go over it again later, so I'm not worried that the line is not blending all the way out. Same for this here. I'm going to use the top white so that I can come back and add my E000 later. Okay, and then for his nose, we're going to dab just a little bit and then go up each of the sides, touching the E21. Okay, and then I'm going to grab E000. And I'm going to fill that space in. So I'm just going to go right here, try not to get it on his eye. Flick over the top of his nose, over his mouth. Come back on this side, go around that eye, but try not to get it in his eye. Okay, and see how it's still looking quite blotchy, but that's okay because we're going to do it a second time after we add his cheek color. So I'm going to grab R20 for cheeks, and I'm just going to put some little circles underneath of his eyes here. So I'm just going to put a little circle right here. I'm going to go over here underneath of his pupil and add a little circle on this side. And then I'm going to grab my R30 to blend it, and I'm going to very lightly touch the edge of my R20 and just flick away from it just a tiny bit. I don't want the circle to be huge, but I want to soften that line on the edge just a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my R21 again, and I'm going to actually do this side, because it's tipped away from the light, just a little bit more. And then I'm going to grab the E00, and we're going to go over that. So now's the time I want to make sure to blend in my line, so I'm going to flick right over the top of that. And if it's not blended, I'm going to go back over it. And then I'm going to come over here to this side. And then we're going to flick right from the edge. Come in, go over that cheek a little bit. And I got a little bit down here I didn't blend very good, so I'm going to grab that. And I'm going to do a little bit more on the sides of his nose that I gave him. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to grab my E000, and we're going to fill in his ear. And then we're just going to brush right over those cheeks and over his nose and brush his whole face and just fill that in. And if you wanted to pinken up his cheeks a little bit more, if they faded a little bit, just grab your R20 again, give it another little circle, R30 to blend the sides, and then your E000 just to soften them just a little bit. And isn't he cute? Alright, so let's do his hair, and for that I'm going to use E47, E57, and E34, and I'm going to start with my E47, which is the darkest, and I'm going to start up here in his part, and I'm just going to take my 47 and add a few little streaks in there. Let's just darken up that part and pull down into the rest of his hair. And you want to make sure that your lines go in the direction his hair is going. So his hair is kind of growing like this, so you wouldn't want to put your lines like this. That would be, it would just look terrible. So try to keep your pen going in the same direction. And here I'm going to get a couple of these little streaks he has coming down here. And let's get this one, and then let's also do a few of our little darkest strands down here towards the bottom of his hair. I think I'm going to do a little bit right here too, like that. Okay, we're going to do the same thing for the other side. So I'm going to do a little bit on the bottom of his bangs. Down here by his ear, but I'm trying not to touch his ear. And get a few of these lines the artist has already drawn for us in there. Add some great texture. And then again, I'm going to pull away from his part. And I'm keeping my pen going in the same direction that his hair is growing. And I'm going to go with my E57, and we're going to start again on this side. So I'm going to touch down a little bit on my 47 and pull some more dark streaks out into his hair. This color's got a nice reddish base to it. And maybe go over a couple of these little creases. That looks pretty good. Let's do the other side. And make sure to work a couple of these over here. Get a couple of these little streaks. Maybe do a couple of these up here. And then of course we want to pull away from his roots. I'm going to take my E37 and fill it in. So I'm just going to brush down from his part. And then I've kind of tipped my pen more. When I was doing the streaks I had it more up and down, but this time I've tipped my pen just a little bit down, so it's covering up more space. Covers a little bit more area. I gotta get up here. Like that. Okay, and then I'm going to go back with my E47 and add just a little bit more dark in up here at his roots. So I've got my pen more straight up and down, and I'm just going to flick from his part there and just add a few little dark pieces in there. And I might do a couple down here too. Just go with how you're feeling. Look at it and go, oh, do I want to darken that little space up? But I wanted to keep his hair pretty much messy and tousled like it was already, so I didn't do too much. But that is his hair. Alright, for his shirt, I'm going to use BG13, BG11, BG10, and then I'm going to use G00 to add some green to it. So I'm going to start with my BG13, and I'm going to add my shadows. So he's got just a little bit of his shirt showing right here underneath these flowers. So I'm going to put just a tiny dab in there. And then I want to go, and if you're like me, I don't use this color too much, so it might be really wet, so be careful, or remove the other end of your pen for a second and give it a chance to, suck more ink into the middle of the pen and make it even, because I just don't use this color too much, or I've refilled it and it's really wet. I go down these stems and down to the bottom of his shirt. Okay, and over here, I'm going to do along his collar, and she's got a couple of little cute little wrinkles there that are ready for me, so I'm going to do that. And I think I'll bring this shirt sleeve down just a little bit right there. I'm going to get that wrinkle, go down this side of his shirt where it's kind of tucked in underneath of his arm. And he's got a nice little wrinkle right here, and we want to do that. And then for his sleeve on this side, I want to get these little wrinkles. And then this one, he's got a little wrinkle right here, so I'm going to put a little bit of color right there and right here just to darken it up. Then I'm going to grab BG11, and I'm going to lay down right on top of my 13, and I'm going to flick towards my white. So we're pulling that out away from the darkest into my light space. And flick right over here. And I left just a little tiny dab of white over here, so I'm going to get that. And I'm going to get this side of his shirt. Do some of this side. I think I'll actually do the back side of his shirt right here and just leave this middle part white. And then I might come down here and get this cute side of his shirt, and I think I'll come down a little bit more on this side, and maybe do on this side of the pocket too, because that'll make it look a little bit more shadowed. And then I'm going to grab BG10, and we're going to fill it in. So I'm flicking completely across all the other two colors, and we're just pulling that up here into his white space. Up here into his shirt sleeve. That. Okay, so for his pockets, I went back with my BG13, and for his shirt collar here, I went around my buttons. Whoops. I tried not to color the button. And I did the bottom part of his pocket. And then I did BG11 on this upper part of his pocket. This will be a little bit later. Okay, my paper I picked had an aqua color. It was more of a greenish, and this is really bluish green. So at the end, I took my G00, and I just went over his whole shirt to give more green to it. We're just going over his entire shirt. And adding some green tone. I'm trying to be careful not to go outside the line. Go over his pocket. You still want to go over this part. But that kind of toned down the bluish, the bright blue green, and made it more, it matched my paper a little bit more. So for his buttons, I just went and took my E43 and I just filled those in. And you could color them any color you want. It's just I already had that color out, so I just went ahead and used the color I already was using. So let's move over here and do these stems on our flowers. And for that, we're going to use G94, YG93, and G82. And I'm going to start with G94, and I'm going to add some shadows. So I want some shadows to be on my stems underneath of his hand. And this back one down here, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit more because it's behind the other stems. And then for the leaves, I'm going to do the great lines that the artist has already put on there for me. But I also want to do just a little bit next to the petals of the flower because the flower is going to be casting a shadow. Then I went with my YG93 and I brushed over my 94, but I'm going to add some of this. So bring it down just a little bit further. The leaves, I'm just going to leave a little bit of white so that I can go over with my lightest green on those. So now I'm going to fill it in with G82. But I liked adding the yellow-green in there, have it a little bit more of a yellow tone. So I'm going to go back with my 94 and darken up a little bit more of my lines. Give it a little bit more shadow. And then again with my YG93. And then fill it in with 82, G82. Okay, let's go do the flowers. Alright, for the flowers I'm going to use BV02 and BV00. So I'm going to start with my BV02 and we're going to add some shadows in there. So I just went with the great little flicked away from the center of the flower. And kind of, some of these little lines go all the way to the end of the flower, so I add a little bit more up there. So like this one, the kind of creases go up just a little bit more, so I just added a little bit more on the little crease there. And we'll do the same thing down here. And some of these got a little bit larger petals, so I sort of went down into the petals just a little bit more. And get this back one. And then I took my BV00 and I actually didn't go all the way to the end. I went, except for these ones in the front because there's not much space left. Just flick right on top of our O2 and bring in some of this lighter color and soften our line. And then for the center, I used YR24 and Y19. So for my 24, I wanted them to be darkest down here at the bottom of the flower. So I added my 24 down here. And then I grab my 19 to fill it in. And this month you actually got a Spica lilac glitter pin in your kit, so I'm going to use that to do the rest of the flowers. So I'm just going to color my flower all the way to the end now, and just add my glitter pin right over the top of all those colors I already colored. That gives them a nice shiny purple sparkles over the top. That's why I left them white at the end, because I knew the Spica glitter pen would cover some of that up. And I know you can't see it on camera, but there's glitter on there on the flowers. So that leaves the grass. So let's go do that. So for the grass, we're going to use G40, G94, G82, and YG93. And I'm going to start with my G40. So I never want it to look like I just stopped her at the bottom, and it's great that he has this grass back here in the back. So I'm going to kind of go wing it and go across like this and go, oh, the grass must go in here in between his legs. So it's not just flat space back there. And then I'm going to go down here and we're going to fill in this grass. And I'm just going to flick away from his feet out here into my white. And same over here, I'm going to color my grass, and then I'm going to flick my color away from his feet. Like that. Then I'm going to take my G94 and I'm going to add some darker grass streaks in there. So I've already got some grass right here, so I'm going to just take the end of my pen and just give each one a little flick of grass. And I don't care that they go outside of the lines. Same with this little bunch down here. I'm going to give it a little flick and then kind of go underneath of it just a little bit, so it gives a little bit of dark underneath. And then same for this side over here. I'm going to flick a little bit onto my grass stems, and then I'm just going to go away underneath there just to add some shadows. Oops, I think I'll put a little bit more right there. And then here's a little bunch. Add some grass in there, and then darken up some of those lines. Here's a couple lines right there. And then I'm going to come in with YG93, and we're going to do the same thing. So I've added some streaks right here, but I'm going to add just a little bit more of this. And then down here in my open space, I'm going to add some little bits of grass. Let's add a few down here. Maybe go over a little bit over those lines. Add a few up here. And let's grab G82 and do the same thing. And again, I'm not caring that it's not anywhere close to my line. We're just having some fun and adding some grass in there. And some of the grass is going up onto the boys' pants. That's okay. Maybe add a little bit of this green here along the bottom of this. Like that. And then I'm going to take my G40 and I'm just going to lightly go over some of these lines that I did sideways, just to soften them just a little bit. And there you have some grass. So now I actually went in and I added some clouds in the background, but just so it didn't look like I didn't have to get quite so close to him, I added his shadow around the outside. And so for that I'm going to use B quadruple zero in my colorless blender. I'm going to start with my B quadruple zero first, and I'm going to go from up here where his little hair is poking out, and I'm just going to draw a line right next to his head and go all the way down until I hit the grass. And I'm doing this side with the darkest color because it's, remember, I wanted the sun to come from the other side first. I wanted the sun to be shining from over here the most. Okay, and I'm going to do in between his legs here too, because that's going to be darker in there. And then I'm going to put that one away, and I'm going to grab my B_0, and let's zoom in a little bit. Can't really see that. Okay, so see my line of my dark blue there? I'm going to take this one now, and I'm just going to flick right over the top of it. And this works best if your pen is wet. If it's all dried out and needs re-ink, it doesn't work as well. So we're just flicking right on top of our color and pulling right out into our shade out here. Okay, I guess you see it a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to take my colorless blender and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to flick away from him, pull past both those colors out here into my white space. And that's just softening that edge. Okay, and then I'm going to go back with my B_0. I'm going to not do the darkest shade on this side. I'm going to do the lighter shade, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to go right up next to him and draw a line. I'm going to go all the way up until I get to the top where I meet my other line. So we're going to go back up here to this great little patch of hair that's poking up. And then I'm going to take my colorless blender. I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side, and I'm just going to go right over that line and pull out into my white space. And that's just softening that line up, and I won't have to worry about getting so close to him when I'm putting my clouds in the background. That. So that was our May 2013 Copic card kit. Wasn't he easy? Not too difficult. So let's put him together. Alright, so I've got all my stuff here together, and let's go ahead and do our clouds on our boy first. And so for that, I'm going to use my little cloud template, and mine's all nasty because I've used it a million times. But you can download one of these on the side of the blog and print it out, cut it out, and use it a million times. And so I'm going to use my tumbled glass distressing to make my clouds. I've got that. I've got my little sponge dauber. And I usually start with my clouds down near the bottom. And I try to position my cloud template, so see how he's got his little hand right here? I try to position it so that my cloud actually covers that up so I don't get crazy and get blue on the boy, because I do get crazy. And then I just dab my thing in here, and I always start with my sponge dauber on my cloud template, and I brush on that first to use up some of the ink, and then pull up here onto my white. And I'm going to go ahead and do this side over here too, since it's not touching anything. And there we've started our clouds. There's got a couple on there. And then I'm going to, oh, and I'm on top of my nonstick craft mat too. That makes it a little easier. And then I kind of move my clouds around, so see how this one kind of goes up and then it goes down? I'm going to put a bigger one up right there. So I've got different sizes of clouds coming up. And do the same thing on this side. And let's go ahead and do this one. And let's move over here. And I think I got enough on my ink on my thing. I won't redab it. I'm just going to add a little bit lighter cloud over here on these two sides. And I need a little bit more over here. Oh, that looks pretty good. And I just continue working my way up and adding more clouds. Okay, and then I look at it and say, oh, let's do a little bumpier cloud over here. And let's do one really bumpy one right here in the middle. I think I'll actually just continue on over here and add a little bit of a side cloud on that one. Okay, I think that looks pretty good, but I'm also going to just take a little bit of my sponge dauber, scroll a little bit down here, and I'm just going to add a little bit down here towards the bottom underneath the clouds, just a tiny dab. And the same thing for this side up here. I'm turning around so I can see them a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit of blue down here towards the bottom. So it doesn't look like the clouds just stop there in midair. But like that, and it just adds some great little clouds on there. And oh, this little spellbind, this is a new spellbinder die too that I cut them out with. It's one of the 5x7 distressed edge ones, and I love it because it's bigger. So a lot of more images are going to fit in this size die than the little smaller ones they had before. So now let's go ahead. I've got a couple of other pieces as long as I got my paper out. Let's move him over here. So in your kit, you're going to have your little mat and this little saying. So let's do the little saying first. And for that, I use my walnut stain to distress the edges. It's the same thing. I'm going to grab my sponge dauber, and it's a different one. And I'm just going to start swirling over here on my mat, and then just go around the edges of my saying. And I just wanted it to pop out a little bit more. That's why I distressed the edges. So after I put it on, it just seemed like it didn't pop enough. I'll do the same thing all the way around and just distress that up just a little bit like that. I'll set that aside. And then you got this great mat in there too that I did that too. And you want to be careful when you're going around the edges of this one because it may rip. So I just very carefully go around the edges of this, and I'm just going to go all the way around and darken up that craft paper. And I thought this mat was really, it's called Floral Oval. It's one of the Spellbinder dies. It was really pretty, and so when I made my card, I'm like, oh, that's going to be perfect. Until I had to cut out 54 of the little cute frames, and then I was like, what was I thinking? And I'm also going to do, I think I'm going to brush a little bit off here, but I'm going to go over these little dots a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of go in here with a little bit more ink and just kind of scrub over some of these dots and just darken those up just a little bit more. There, just kind of distress it up some more. Make it pop out a little bit more when you go to put it all together. Okay, so let's move this because that's dirty over here. And let's put some of our parts together. So let's do, well, here we can put this little pink flower piece on top of our mat. Let's go ahead and put some glue on that. As long as we got that piece out, we might as well just stick it together. Okay. And that goes in between the little dots. Like so. Okay. And then we got our aqua piece and this great little piece with the dots. So I'm going to go ahead and do or you could use the yellow piece too if you wanted. So let's go ahead and attach those. Okay, I'm going to put that right here. And then we got this piece with the number, so let's attach that. And if you use the yellow side, this side would be perfect on there because it'd stand out a little bit more. I always love to use double-sided paper because you get twice as many options. And this one is going to go like this. And make sure we got some on the bottom and the top. Okay, and then we got a piece of ribbon, and I've already cut mine to go along the front of the card, so I've got that. And I've got my trusty masking tape that I'm just going to pull this across the front, and I'm going to attach it right here in the middle so that it can't go anywhere. And get another piece, and I'm going to make sure this is straight, like this, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to tape it onto the back. Cheating. I don't want it to go all the way across and go to the front because it seems like you're wasting all that ribbon on the back of the card, and I actually cut this one a little bit longer than I normally would. Same thing with this side. Tape that one down. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to attach this to the front of our card base. So let's add some sticky to this. Move that frame out of the way. A little bit easier to run the tape runner on a flat surface. Okay, and now you want to decide which way your card's going to open before you attach it to the card front. So I'm just going to go like this. And, oh, I should have probably stuck this underneath there. It's okay, we'll just put some glue on there. And I'm just going to take this and pop my tape up like that. And I'm going to tuck this right in here. And I want to keep it, whoops, inside my white area so that it will fit in the envelope. Okay, press that down. Oops. Straighten my ribbon back out. Like that. Next we have our boy, so let's go ahead and give him some pop dots. We're just going to give him a few pop dots here on the back. I always like things popped up. Like that. We're going to peel off these. It always seems like these things constantly are getting stuck. The little tabs on the back of my pop dots on everything. Have them all over my workplace. Okay, and I want to see some of my numbers over here, so I'm going to put it like, let's bring it down just a little bit more. How about right there? So that leaves my great ribbon, and I'm going to make it, because I tied my bow already, I'm going to smush my ribbon up. So I'm going to grab me a glue dot, and I'm going to bunch up my ribbon, and I'm going to stick it down onto the paper. So I'm going to grab another pop dot, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. I'm just going to stuff a glue dot underneath there and scrunch up my ribbon so that it looks like it kind of goes in right here. Okay, and then I've already got my ribbon, and I cheated. I tied it with my Bow Easy before I started the video, because otherwise it would take me forever. And so, and there's a whole nother video on that if you want to go watch a tutorial on how to use your Bow Easy to make your bow. And I've done a double looped bow. Okay, and we're just going to trim these ends however you would like. I think I'll just leave this one a little bit longer. Just cut it off like that. So that leaves our cute little sentiment. So for my little sentiment, I'm actually going to, I want it to be popped up more than he's popped up. So I'm going to use a thicker pop dot on this end that's sticking off of him. And then I'm going to use one of the same size ones that I used on him on this end. So I've got twice as much pop dot on one end as the other end, but that will help him pop up just a little bit. And then I just decided where I wanted that to go, and I stuck it down like that. And it says, just saying hello. So that is our May 2013 Copic card kit. I hope you had fun coloring with me today. If you did, could you hit the like button down below and head over to the store and pick you up a kit and get to coloring. Have a great day. Bye.